Hello Internet. Today we're going to be replacing the HVAC blower motor, the resistor for it, and the wiring pigtail for it on my 2002 Dodge Dakota. I don't believe it makes a difference, but this particular one is an automatic with the 4.7 liter V8 in it. And here's what we're going to need. We've got an 8mm socket and driver, a pair of wire cutters that can also crimp, our butt connectors. I'm going to use some dielectric grease. We've got our blower motor. We've got our resistor. And we've got the pigtail assembly. Now anytime you have any issues with your fan speed not working correctly, say your fan only works on high, or say your fan just quits altogether, but say your AC light stays on, I recommend replacing not just the blower motor and not just the resistor, but also replace the wiring pigtail. It's a little more work, it's a little more money, but I will show you why I say that in just a few minutes. Alright, so on the passenger side, we come up under here. Now I've replaced this once before for other reasons, but you've got the wiring pigtail, this, that plugs into your resistor here, and then your blower motor, which is right here. Alright, so the first thing I want to do is I'm going to come under here, and there's two little 8mm bolts on the resistor itself. I'm going to take those out. Here's our two screws. They're basically the same as all these other screws you'll find in and around the dashboard that screw into plastic. Lay them up here, and then just grab this and wiggle, and it should just pop right out. Now it's also got one of these little red locks right here. We gotta push that back out. And then maybe, if we're lucky, well, it's not wanting to come apart, which is sort of demonstrates the problem, because what happens is when your blower motor gets a little old, maybe gets gummed up with some dirt and contaminants because these trucks don't have a cabin air filter, or maybe the motor just starts wearing out and tightening up, what that does is that increases the resistance across this resistor. And what happens is it's not quite enough to blow the resistor, although sometimes it is. But what happens is even if it blows a resistor, it'll usually allow this connector to get hot enough that the contacts inside will melt together. And so even if you're able to unplug it on yours, it's still advisable to not just replace the resistor and the motor, but to also replace the wiring pigtail, because it most likely will not mate properly with a new resistor and will just keep causing issues, and you'll have to replace it eventually anyway. So like I said, I've replaced this one twice. Once because my blower motor actually went out, and then I had a shop actually replace my whole HVAC box. And I think they may have left an old motor in it, because I didn't tell them that the motor that I had put in it was brand new. Because since having the HVAC box replaced, the resistor has gone out once before, hence the second splice, and now here it's quit again. So I'm thinking that blower motor may be an old motor that they've put in here. But your symptoms will be, if the resistor blows, your fan will only work on high speed. But right now what mine is doing is my AC condenser fan will kick in, but my blower motor doesn't do anything. And you can see, even while depressing this button and the lock is out and prying on it with a screwdriver, this will not come off of here, because inside here these plastic contacts have melted together. So I'm going to replace the resistor, the pigtail, and the blower motor, and that should take care of my issues. Now one thing you want to pay attention to is it matters what order these wires go in. And when I put the new one on, I like to use the all green wires because they're heavier gauge. And so I figure since these are prone to failure anyway, I don't want the wire to be the weak point. But because they're all now green wires, what we have to do is we have to cut and reconnect one at a time in order to make sure we don't get any of these wires crossed. So here's our new pigtail assembly. I'll try to stay out of the frame of the camera as much as possible. Now your new pigtail, all of the ones I've purchased, do not come with the wires pre-installed. Now this is the female side that will go onto the resistor, so we want to flip it around. You can see you've got a little latch door back here with a rubber boot inside it. That will pop off. Or maybe take a small flat screwdriver and pry on it a little bit to get it started. Because you've got 1, 2, 3, 4 little sort of locks. So I'm just going to get that one started, and then that one started, and when that one pops, there we go. We're going to lift this off. We're going to take this little piece of rubber out. You can avoid cutting it. Alright. Take your little dust boot out. And we're going to take and we're going to run all of our wires. We're going to pre-feed them through these holes. Alright. 1 and 5. Alright. Now we have to take these, and in order, make sure you don't get them crossed, is with the connector facing up and the tapered end facing up. You insert it into this hole and you push it all the way forward. You'll hear a click. That click means it's now locked into place. And now we just do that with all 5 wires. Tapered end pointing up into the hole. Alright, once they're all locked into place, now we're just going to slide our dust boot up the wires. We take our little lock again here. And again, in order, we got 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. Slide it all the way down and just there we go. Now we've got our pigtail made. So now what we're going to do is we're going to guesstimate about where I would like my splices to be. And since I've already done this once, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to pull this out, cut right at these old butt connectors, and just re-splice right there on that existing wire. So we'll cut the zip tie out. Pull out our slack, and then we'll cut one at a time. And remember which one you're cutting on this plug, because you've got to splice to that one on the new plug. So we're just going to cut right here. Now if you've got a wire stripper, that would be easiest here. I'm just going to use my pocket knife. Try not to block the camera with my arm. Alright. The new plug comes pre-stripped. You just got to pull it off. It looks like it's in there pretty decent. And we crimp it down. Give it a tug to make sure it ain't going to just fly apart. And we go to the next one. And there's our new pigtail connected, the old one cut out, with the resistor that absolutely would not come off of it. Now here's our new resistor, and there's one thing about this that you want to pay attention to. It is keyed. You see how one corner is shaved off? The hole under the dash has one corner that matches that. And it's an exact fit, and it may not even want to go properly if this has gotten hot before and maybe warped that plastic in there a little bit. But we're going to try to get this lined up the best that we can. I'm going to try to angle y'all toward this as best as I'm able so you can see. Let's see if there's a little lip that goes around it that will recess up into this hole if you get it right. You might have to kind of wiggle, or maybe, there it goes right there. It may even feel like you're having to force it a little bit, but we got her. No, we didn't. That plastic's just a little bit tight. There we go. Where'd my other screw go? There we go. And what this does, this places the resistor inside an airflow channel, because it does generate some heat because it's a resistor, but the very air that it's blowing is what's going to cool that resistor. Alright, now to maybe help things a little bit, I'm going to put dielectric grease in my connector. I have not done that in the past, but I have had other scenarios where dielectric grease helped hold. Not only did it help keep moisture out, but it also kind of helped hold things and keep things from shifting as easily. So I'm just going to put, well, a bead of it right across my contacts here. Make sure my lock's pulled out. Click that into place. And we put our lock back through its little slot. So that even if we tried to depress this button, it shouldn't come off. Okay, let's shove it back up. Alright, so now, to test that that part is done correctly, let's turn the key on. And we should have low. Alright, that part's done correctly. So now, for the blower motor, which I believe is the root cause of this issue in the first place. Now the blower motor is pretty simple. There's no splicing or anything required as long as your wiring looks okay. You've got this little plug here. You just push your little red lock out. There we go. And then we've got 3 more 8mm screws. And they're just these regular old little same kind of screw that came out of the resistor. Get it loose. There we go. Keep track of our screw. There we go. We're just going to take our new one. We're going to set it such that this connector ends up toward the back. So we want to kind of orient it this way. We just slide it up in here. Make sure we don't catch these wires in between it or anything. Line up our screw holes. Alright, then take my dielectric grease. I'm going to do the same thing to the blower motor too. I'm going to just line the contacts here. And then plug it back into the new motor. Close our red lock. Nope, everything's together good. Motor solid. And then I'll zip tie these up here out of the way in a little bit. So now we know the resistor and the pigtail work. Let's test the new motor, make sure we got it in good. Turn the key on. We got, there's low. It's blowing good. Alright, so that was replacing the blower motor, the resistor, and the pigtail for the resistor on a 2002 Dodge Dakota. Like I said, the symptoms I was having was that I could occasionally smell what smelled like hot plastic coming through my vents, and then it started acting up where the fan wouldn't come on, but I could reach down and I could kind of wiggle the wires on that resistor and it would kick in, and then eventually it just quit altogether. But my AC condenser fan in the front was running and the AC light was on, so there was a short that was telling the condenser fan to kick on but not actually delivering power to the blower motor. Now, another symptom that you can have is if the resistor itself pops, what will happen is your blower will work, but only on the highest possible speed. You won't have any of the lower speeds, and that's usually caused by the blower motor itself. Like I said, it'll get gummed up with dirt and crud because these vehicles don't have a cabin air filter, and or the motor itself will just begin to wear out and tighten up, and when it starts to offer resistance to movement, it increases the load on that resistor, which will make it pop. But the problem is that when it gets hot and pops, the connector for it also tends to get hot, and it will cause the connector and the resistor to fuse together and melt the plastic inside there and allow those metal contacts to move out of position to where they'll either break contact or they'll make contact where they shouldn't be making contact. So if you think you need to replace the resistor and or your blower motor, I also recommend just go ahead and replace the pigtail wiring harness for it as well, because it's probably got issues even if it doesn't look hurt at the time. So I was finally able to bash this enough to break it open and get it apart. Now this damage is actually from me whacking it, but you can see how black and charred everything in there is, especially that pin right there. That's what I was talking about. Whenever the motor gets weak or plugged up, or if it's just bad and it increases the resistive load on this, it doesn't just pop the resistor, and sometimes the resistor won't even pop, but slowly over time these wires get hot enough that they'll melt themselves to death. So whenever you replace your blower motor or your resistor, I highly recommend just go ahead and do the wiring harness for the resistor as well. So that's it for today's video. If you guys have any comments, questions, concerns, or suggestions, please feel free to post them in the comment section below, and I'll try to get to them as necessary. I get so many notifications on YouTube nowadays from my people I'm subscribed to and things that I don't always see comments unless I actively go and look for comments. For some reason, I'm not getting notified when people comment on my videos, but I will try to get back to you as soon as I can. And hopefully you found this video informative or useful. And as always, this is Marcus out. Y'all take care and have a good one.